Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Shah. On behalf of Kalwas, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have another very interesting topic, and I'm really honored to welcome and introduce our distinguished guest speaker who is going to talk about public speaking. Indeed, they say public speaking is an art and you need to learn it. So, is it art or is it a science? Because some say it is science which is organized and systematic. So, how to learn and develop public speaking with confidence and influence? Really, very interesting topic, and I'm sure you will learn a lot from this session because we have an expert with us in today's this session who will share a lot of wonderful things with us. So stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in this session. So before we start, I would like to thank Kalwas for arranging such enlightenment sessions for their support and providing us such a wonderful platform. The aim of Kalwas is to give you the opportunity to connect and interact with world-renowned speakers, academic leaders, teachers, authors, researchers, experts, professionals, and businessmen to learn from their experiences, recommendations, and suggestions which will create an impact and will enable you to learn and develop yourself in order to grow and transform individually as well as to contribute to the world in positive way. As our slogan is come, learn and share knowledge. So today we have an amazing person as guest, a person having a wonderful experience in an international known personality. He is a great human being. We always see him while contributing to the world on different platforms. Above everything, the great thing about him is that he is always ready to share his knowledge. So let me introduce him formally. He is an internationally sought after keynote speaker, multi award winning certified content marketing strategist, communication and leadership coach, and certified public speaker. He is widely regarded as the go to source on leadership, public speaking, entrepreneurship, and management. As a seasoned, energetic, and motivational speaker, he has over 15 years' experience in content market strategy, communication, and leadership coaching and public speaking. Moreover, he is presently work as a part-time lecturer at the Grajos College of Mass Communication and Management Technology, where he teaches new media, public speaking, and digital marketing. Moreover, he is certified associate business management professional by Unicaribbean Business School, currently an executive board member of Global Trainer Academy (GTA) and global trainer on leadership and management at the Global Trainer Academy. He is honorary head country head, International Institute of Organized Research, and an education ambassador to the International Internship University. In addition to that, he has been recognized severally on different forums as a social media expert, a freelance writer, behind the experts having worked with numerous brands, institutions, organizations, professionals, media houses, and best selling authors. He has a track record of achieving exceptional results in life coaching, motivating creativity, and providing leadership guidance. As a communication and leadership expert, he has delivered keynote presentation on different forums that has challenged his audience to leverage their focus and pay attention to what matters most at work and in life. He has written 9 books, several articles, and essays, which have been widely read in local and international platforms. Some of his article has been presented and published as editorial reviews, periodical, the opinion articles, and commentaries in over 10 different publications, online and offline. Last but not the least, he's a wonderful speaker, author, teacher, professional, and above everything, a great human being. So please help me in welcoming our guest, Dr. Adeogun Joseph Kayode. Welcome to the Calvas platform, and thank you very much for joining us, Prof.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to sincerely appreciate you for inviting me to this platform. It's a great privilege. I will also say it's also a real privilege to be on this international platform. First of all,
Thank
I
you.
want to appreciate you as the host, Dr. Ida. Shah. I believe I got the pronunciation very well.
Yes, Prof.
Okay,
Perfectly.
all right. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Then I also want to appreciate the management of Bahrain University and Center for Academic Learning, Writing and Support Services, Pakistan, for this opportunity given to me. Then all the faculty members of Bahrain University, Pakistan, I want to say thank you very much. You are indeed my colleagues, as I'm also a lecturer at Graduate College of Mass Communication and Management Technology. So I appreciate you for inviting me to this forum. All right,
It's,
that
it's
said,
our pleasure,
I also
Prof, to have you because we know that you are very busy person, and actually we want to thank you for sparing your precious time and to guide our audience around the globe because international audience is watching you and they will learn a lot from you because you are an expert and you have a wonderful experiences and recommendation, and we are eagerly waiting for your presentation because you are going to share wonderful stuff with us. So thank you once again. As a soft reminder to the audience that Prof will be presenting and he would leave time for question answer session at the end of presentation. So you can ask question by writing in comment section or you can email us on info@callwas.com. So over to you, Prof. Thank you.
all right, I want to appreciate you once again. Then I also want to appreciate the international audience for creating your time to be on this platform. As you have heard from my dear friend, Professor and Associate Prof, I will be focusing on the topic public speaking skills, speak with power and influence. Now, you may ask yourself that what is the importance of public speaking? The importance of public speaking cannot be overemphasized. As one, it helps you to connect easily with your audience. You will be able to gain more attention, you'll be able to gain more visibility, you will also be able to gain more prominence with whoever that you connect with. When you learn to connect with people of different ages as a public speaker, people that have different experiences, different natural abilities, you will be able to pass a message to them that will improve their life for better. It will improve their career, it will also improve their personal life. According to experts, you will agree with me that every day we are bombarded with 35,000 messages every day. That is what expert says. Every day we are bombarded with 35,000 messages everywhere you go, everywhere you look. Someone somewhere is trying to gain your attention. Every politician, journalist, family, acquaintances, they have something to say to you. They need your attention. So, how can you capture their attention with your voice, with the power of your public speaking, with the power of connecting to your audience? That is what my presentation will be focused on. And then I've been rightly introduced as a content marketing strategist, certified communications and leadership coach. So you can also see a brief description or an abridged profile. I'm certified by Google, by e-marketing institute and Osbert as marketing strategist. I'm also a trained communicators and also a leadership coach by Bates Academy and Europe Open University. All right, so that said, now the question comes again. What is the number one fear in the world? You may ask yourself, as you can see in the picture, you can see a woman, she was surprised. Of all the phobias we have out there, public speaking is considered the highest. Do you know the reason? It's obvious. It affects 3 out of 4 people or 75% of individuals that suffer from speech anxiety that is rather known as glossophobia. Have you heard the word before? Glossophobia is a medical term that simply describes the fear of public speaking. In fact, the fear of public speaking is accounts for 19%, and the largest majority of those suffering from some form of phobia out there agrees that public speaking is number one fear that they struggle with. So, how can you manage stage frights? All right, that's another way of referring to the fear of public speaking. So, how can you manage it? How can you speak with influence? How can you capture the attention of your audience? How can you, in a way, manage glossophobia? That is the fear of public speaking. Now, I'm going to be premising my conversation or my discussion on three types of public speaking that we have. And this will help you to appreciate how you can speak with influence, how you can also speak with power. Because it is only when you understand the categories of public speaking we have, then you'll be able to know the kind of public speaking skills that you need to pinch as a tent, as it were, to help you to be an exceptional public speaker. And then take note that all the information I will be sharing with you, they are time-tested strategies that has helped me in my public speaking career, and also as a lecturer too. I've also used this to help my students to become effective public speaker. So we are looking at the first type of public speaking or public speaker, and that is persuasive public speaker. The word persuasion, as you may rightly know, is a conscious, active effort that ultimately boils down to getting someone to agree to your specific, your desired outcome. Is that also? You want to convince someone to buy your product, for example, if you are a marketer, you need to persuade the person. You need to convince the person to accept your message, right? It is about convincing someone to agree with your submissions, or you appeal to their emotion using illustrations that they can easily relate with. So, who is a persuasive public speaker? With a brief definition of persuasiveness or persuasion. Simply put, persuasive public speaker uses logical argument to drive home his point. I take that again. As a persuasive speaker, you are expected to use logical arguments to help your audience to reason with your message, to help your audience to reason with your submissions in order to drive home your point. What an illustration, for example, or idiom or analogy does to your presentation is that it takes your audience to a deeper level of understanding. Did you get that? Or it helps it help your audience to remember a point or principle that you have shared or discussed with them. So, as a persuasive public speaker, you are expected to use submissions. You are expected to use illustrations or idioms that your audience can easily grasp. If you are doing anything short of that, you are not a persuasive public speaker. And hence, you want to help your audience to appreciate the message you are trying to get across to them using specific desired illustrations or outcome to help them appreciate the importance of the message you are trying to pass across to them. Did you get that? That is what is expected of you as a persuasive public speaker. All right, that takes us to the next type of a public speaking or public speaker, manipulative public speaker, or in other words, manipulative public speaking. A manipulative individual tends to have a negative, dishonest, or even undermine the feelings of others. Whether it is done overtly or passively aggressively or manipulatively, sorry, manipulation is about forcing someone to do what you want, as against persuasive public speaking. Remember what I mentioned as regards being a persuasive public speaker. You want someone to agree with your message, either consciously or unconsciously. And what do? You appeal to their emotions using illustrations, using facts and figures, using analogies, using idioms that they can easily relate with. But as a manipulative public speaker, you do what? What do? That is the opposite of persuasive public speaking. You try to force someone to do what you want them to do when you either directly or indirectly uh, comfortable for them or not comfortable to them. So you disregard their feelings, you disregard their needs or their reasoning faculty. You play on their intelligence, as it were, as a manipulative public speaker. You cannot influence your audience with manipulative public speaking, right? So that said, a manipulative public speaker forces his message on his listeners without evidence-based facts. It plays on people's emotions. It plays on people's intelligence. Did you get it? That is what a manipulative public speaker does. And then let me quickly share an experience with you. In the movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, by Leonardo DiCaprio, he played a master manipulator by institutionalizing a strategy for lying to prospective clients about investment opportunities in order to trick them into investing far more than they could afford or felt comfortable spending. So when he was on the phone with a male prospect who claimed they wanted to check with their wives before buying anything, do you know what he does in that movie? When I watched it, he softly changed their manhood, telling them that they shouldn't need their wives' permission in order to spend money that is the men had had. Now, from that simple illustration or analogy, or the movie, it's actually a movie, he knew that for every dollar that he lost, he would gain personally, and that he believed he can do by playing on the intelligence of his caller at the other end. So he pressured them until they gave in, and they were able to put in the money they never planned or they never expected that they would spend. That is what a manipulative public speaker does. He tries to manipulate. It plays on the intelligence of his audience. All right. Now we want to look at another type of public speaking or public speaker, influential public speaker. The word influential is taken from the word influence. In contrast, is a power that goes beyond immediate conversation or decision. So, a persuasive public speaker certainly uses persuasion. He uses emotional intelligence. He uses an active listening. He uses logical and reasoning to persuade his audience to accept his message. Did you get what I just said? An influential public speaker uses persuasion, such as emotional intelligence. He observes his audience. He do what we call audience analysis. He tries to understand their age, their demography, their locations, their activities, their career, what they usually engage in. That gives him an idea of how to make his presentation convincingly to his audience. So he uses emotional intelligence, he uses active listening, he uses logical reasoning to convince his audience to accept his message or submission. All right. Then he also has an in-depth knowledge of interpersonal skills. He knows how to relate with his audience without needlessly offending them. All right. Good. So I also want to mention that in the course of making your presentation, always bear in mind that you will be faced with disappointment. Right? Not everybody will accept your message. No matter how convincingly you present your message, no matter how persuasively you present your message, not everybody in the audience will accept your message. There are times when you will win, and at times you will lose an argument. There are times you will persuade someone to accept your view, and there are times they will accept your views, and there are times they will reject it. No matter how persuasive, how convincing your presentation is. So hence, it becomes very important that you pay attention to how you make your presentation. So the question you want to ask yourself is, now out of the three types of public speaking or public speaker that I've mentioned, now which of the three should you observe, or which of the three should you embrace? I will advise that you pick between persuasive public speaking and influential public speaking. If you are a manipulative public speaker, you will lose your audience. They will lose you too, as it were. So, for you to gain the attention of your audience, for you to speak with power and influence, you want to speak persuasively with your audience. You want to influence them by helping them to realize reasons why your message should be accepted, right? So you can either be an influential public speaker or a persuasive public speaker. So manipulative public speaking is out of it, because you will want to play on the intelligence of others. You want to lie to them in order for you to be embraced, in order for you to be accepted by them. And that is not good as a public speaker. You want to persuade them. You want to convince your audience to accept your message. So you can either be a persuasive public speaker or an influential public speaker. Now we want to look at another important way you can be an influential public speaker or a persuasive public speaker, and that is speaking and you. Ultimately, you will agree with me that your presentation will have one of the two possibilities. And what are the two possibilities? It will convince others to accept your message, or it will convince them not to accept your message. And that depends on the way you approach your audience. If your message is not well approached, you will confuse your audience instead of convincing them. If your contributions are so technical that people can't follow them, you will lose your audience. They will lose interest in your presentation. So you want to try as much as possible to be flexible in your presentation. Now, what do I mean by being flexible? You want to avoid using technical terms that your audience will struggle to understand. You want to avoid using some jargons that your audience will struggle to look for dictionary for the meanings of some terms you use. You will lose them if you would do that. So it becomes very important that while making your presentation, you make it as simple as possible. Simplicity is the best to influence your audience with power. If your contributions, like I mentioned earlier, is so technical, you will lose your audience. You may even see some of your audience sleeping. You may even see some of your audience gisting while you are making your presentation, because your presentation is not interesting to them. You are not convincing your audience. You are not giving them reasons to accept your message, right? If your presentation is dry, you will also lose your audience too. So you want to infuse facts and figures. You want to infuse illustrations that your audience can easily relate with. That way, you will be informing your audience, you will be educating them, and you will, at the same time, too, you want to entertain them. You can entertain your audience with jokes, but it has to be done discreetly. If you use jokes that your audience don't appreciate, or using jokes that your audience will look inferior, you will also lose them. So you want to use jokes, for example, if that is what you want to start with while making your presentation, or in the course of making your presentation, you need to be mindful of the kind of jokes that you use, of the kind of illustrations that you use, right? If you seem nervous or unconfident when speaking, people will doubt your expertise. It's very obvious. If they notice while making your presentation that you are fidgeting, that your voice is shaking, your audience will know that you are not serious with your presentation. So while making your presentation, you want to do away with nervousness. Yes, sometimes you can have a butterfly in your stomach, even if you are an expert, if you are a certified communicator. That does not rule out the fact that once in a while you can have butterfly in your stomach. You know what I mean by butterfly is you can have some fears, that you may struggle with. So you want to do away with that. When you allow this to be very obvious to your audience, they will doubt your expertise, they will doubt your credibility, and they will lose interest in the message you are presenting to them. So if you are overbearing while making your presentation, if you are an assertive presenter or a public speaker, people will avoid engaging in discussion with you. So you want to be yourself while making your presentation. You don't want to be seen as somebody up there while your audience is down. See your audience on the same level with you. Try to connect with your audience. Try as much as possible to look for things that will make you to connect with your audience in a simple way. All right? Then, on the other hand, you can create magnetism that compels your audience to pay attention to you. And this you can do in two ways. There are two ways you can achieve this. If you explain things in a way that makes sense to your audience, you will create magnetism, or you will have what we call compelling audience. They will leave everything they are doing to pay attention to you, because you explain things in a way that is very easy to them. That will even be more easier for a layman to understand, for a child to understand. While making presentation, it is not an opportunity for you to start using big vocabulary. No, you don't need it. The message will be totally lost. You want to be as simple as possible while making your presentation. Then the second thing you can do to have a magnetic audience or compelling audience to pay attention to your presentation is it's easier for them to see your perspective. You need to put yourself in the shoes of your audience. And that is why before you start your presentation, you need to do an audience analysis. You want to analyze your audience. Now, before I make this presentation, I've had a conversation with Dr. Haider as to the kind of audience I will be relating with. I have undergraduates, I have postgraduates, I have researchers, I even have individuals that jump from different platforms. So I have knowledge of individuals to some extent and their career, the opportunities, I have knowledge of this. And this is guiding the way I'm making my presentation. So as a public speaker, while making your presentation, it becomes very important that you have the perspective that your audience also have. You want to align yourself with your audience. If you make them feel respected and values, what happens? They will be much more motivated to listen to your message. And if otherwise, your guess is as good as mine, you will lose your audience. All right? So people will only buy into your presentation if they first buy into you. Did you get that? They will buy into your presentation if they first buy into you. Now, what that simply means is your manner of approach, your manner of presentation becomes very important. Even the way you look, your outlook becomes very important too. If you are looking haggard, if you are looking tattered, you will lose your audience. Because instead of listening to your message or your presentation, they'll be looking at your outlook, right? Because you are looking haggard, you are not looking presentable. So people will only buy into your message if they first buy into you. So it becomes very important that you take into cognizance your presentation, your mode of dressing. Even your appearance, like I mentioned, is influenced by your communication. For example, when you are presenting to a board of director of an organization, for example, if you go there to make a pitch, all right, for a particular project, if you are fidgeting, if you are picking at your corticals, if you are playing with your mustache, or you are shifting uncomfortably from one foot to the other, your audience will notice that you are losing what? You lack confidence. They will notice that you lack confidence. So it becomes very important that your appearance, your manner of approach, your composure becomes very important to convince your audience to be an influential public speaker. Now, did you see the slide? You will notice the speaker or the presenter, she's speaking with an authority. She's speaking with an authority, making his audience to appreciate the importance of a message. So it's important as an influential public speaker or a persuasive public speaker that you take charge of the room. You need to command the room during your presentation. Now, commanding a room is about being able to gain the attention of your audience, holding them as it were spellbound. So, without having to demand it explicitly, you don't need to tell your audience, pay attention to my presentation, listen to what I'm saying. If your presentation is informative, if your presentation is educative and entertaining too, you don't need to tell them. Automatically, they will pay attention to your presentation because they know you are with authority. You are speaking with authority. You have that voice of making them to appreciate the importance of your message. So, without having to demand explicit explanation from your audience, they will pay attention to you because you have a message to present to them. That is one way you can command the room. That is one way you can gain the attention of your audience. All right? So it's important to pay attention to this. And I tell you, this has helped me over the years to capture the attention of my audience. And it has afforded me opportunity to be on international platforms too. And audience as much as 5,000, 3,000 were able to get messages, were able to be imparted with my presentation. Now, if you look at the slides, you will notice that someone is making a presentation and the audience are doing what? They are paying the rapt attention to the presentation. That is one way you can command the room as a public speaker. The half of that equation is in getting your audience to agree with you, for you to command your audience. All right? So they can either agree with you consciously or unconsciously. They can turn their attention to you subconsciously too, because you are taking charge of the stage. you are taking charge of the room. Everyone like the idea of having, a captive audience. That is what I've also noticed as a certified communicator too. But to me, a captive is a prisoner. Do you agree with that? A captive is a prisoner. So a captive audience is one that has no choice but to sit and listen to you, since they are not allowed to leave. All right? So if you want to become an influential public speaker or a persuasive public speaker that speaks with influence and power, I want to advise that you want to speak with authority. That is the only way you can capture the attention of your audience. You can make them to listen to your message. A captive audience, I will not buy into that. It is the status of most professional audience, in so many gatherings that I've been to, such as meetings, conferences, workshops, presentation. But it is how you want people to feel about you that matters. Do you want them to see you as a captive speaker, that you are forcing your message on them, you are manipulating your audience with your presentation? You will lose them. But when you speak persuasively, they need not to be told that they need to pay rapt attention to your message. All right? Now, another way you can also speak with power and influence is to connect with your audience. Now, how many of you have read John C. Maxwell's book, Everyone Speak But Few Communicate? How many of you have read John C. Maxwell's book? How many of you? Okay, just very few. For you to speak with an authority, you need to connect with your audience. So the question you may ask yourself is, how can you connect with your audience? Learning to connect with people of different ages, experiences, natural ability is the hallmark of an influential public speaker. Learning to connect with people as a public speaker can change your career. And if otherwise, it can also mar your career too. So connecting with your audience is about relevance. If they see the relevance of the message you are presenting to them, apart from commanding the room, apart from commanding the stage, they will pay attention, rapt attention to your message, because the message you are presenting to them is relevant. It is also important, and this is where so many speakers and presenters too, in formal and informal situations alike, lose their audience before they even get started, because they have failed to connect with their audience. Well, ideally, you need your audience to connect with two things while making your presentation. So pay attention to these two things. For you to connect with your audience, there are two things. Whatever you are talking about and you. Did you get that? There are two things that your audience will want to pay attention to while making your presentation. One, they will want to connect with whatever you want to say and you as a person. So when you share meaningful information, it's not just enough anyway to establish a connection with your audience. Your audience needs to recognize that you are connected mentally and emotionally to the topic you are speaking about. Now, if you look at the slides, you will notice that the audience are smiling, and they're also doing what? They're also clapping their hands because they enjoy the presentation by the influential public speaker or a persuasive public speaker. They are not frowning their face, all right? Because the audience was able, the public speaker or the presenter was able to connect with his audience. That is why they are smiling, and at the same time, they are also, showing their appreciation by clapping their hands. All right. Now, apart from commanding the room, Apart from connecting with the audience, you also need to close the deal. All right? So, what does it mean to close the deal? In the end of your presentation, you need to close the deal. All right? So, what does it mean to close the deal? Closing the deal does not necessarily mean getting a signature to a check, although that's important as a public speaker. You'll be given an honorarium for making a presentation, which I've gotten severally, after making some presentation. No, that's not what I mean by closing a deal. No, 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 don't think that. Don't think towards that direction. So closing the deal in this context simply means that your audience agree with your message. While making your presentation, you see them clapping their hands, you see them nodding their heads. You are gradually closing the deal with that signal from your audience. And that yes could be coming to an agreement to your message, or to an agreement to reconvene later to discuss additional detail on next steps. But when you close the deal successfully, there's no need for your audience to tell you to come back next time. Come back next time, what does this simply means? Your audience will tell you, we don't understand you, we want you to come back next time and repeat what you have just presented. You have lost your audience if you are hearing such from them. But if your audience are nodding their head while you are making your presentation, they are clapping their hands while you are making your presentation, they are giving you thumbs up while you are making your presentation, you are gradually closing the deal. And when you know the outcome you want to achieve, each signal from your audience will mean another step towards it. And that is what closing the deal is. So for you to be an influential public speaker, I've mentioned that you need to command the room. Commanding the room simply means being able to gain the attention of your audience, being able to capture the attention of your audience. And then you also need to connect with your audience too. Connecting with your audience is about relevance. Remember, I mentioned that whatever you are talking about, your audience will want to connect with it. Your audience will also want to connect with you as an individual. So your appearance is important. Your demeanor is important while making your presentation. If you are making your presentation and you frown your face, you are creating a wrong signal to your audience. Because you are frowning your face. You are expected to smile at every stage of your presentation. That is another way to convince your audience. That is another way to connect with them. Laughter, they say, is what? Is contagious. Right? And when you also smile too, it's also contagious, right? Your audience will connect with you. Then you also agree with me that I mentioned the importance of closing the deal. Closing the deal in this message is making a closing remarks that will make your audience to agree with your presentation by show of clapping of hands, by giving you thumbs up, and also sometimes they can even stand while you are speaking. They can even stand and even give you an applause because they appreciate your presentation. That is what you need to do as an influential public speaker. So you need to ask yourself that how credible is your presentation? In establishing your vocal presence and for you to successfully master your presentation, I'm going to be focusing on 3 C's that can help you to be a successful public speaker. There are 3 C's that can help you to be a successful speaker. There's one core factor, one perception that is prerequisite to the rest of these 3 C's I'm going to explain in the course of my presentation. In the course of my public speaking career, I've noticed that part of the challenge that many public speakers struggle with is that that they struggled with, whether speaking in meetings, in webinars, in presentations, or in other contests. It seems as though that they find it very difficult holding people captive rather than captivating their attention. They, I repeat that again, they find it very difficult captive rather than captivate them. Norms that that are observed amongst public speakers. The only expected requirement is that as a public speaker, you have to present facts and data that are correct for your audience to accept your message. Often, a speaker's presence neither commands the room nor connects with the audience. So most times, your audience will rely on the material you are presenting to them. Did you get that? Sometimes the principles I gave earlier on, let me quickly repeat that. Commanding the room, that is being able to arrest the attention of your audience, connecting with your audience, giving them a message they can easily connect with, and closing the deal with your audience. Sometimes this may not work. Your audience most times will rely on the material you are presenting. So at best, the typical communication style these days is, is mediocre, or what I would rather refer to mediocrity, and it's not influential. Mediocrity does not inspire credibility. Your audience perception of how believable the speaker is what will make your presentation to be credible. And what are the factors of credibility of presentation? Competence. How the audience regard your intelligence, your expertise, and the knowledge of the subject matter you are presenting becomes very important. So you need to ask yourself, how credible is my presentation? Your competence will determine how credible your presentation is. Then another thing that can make you to be credible to your audience is your character. How your audience regard the sincerity, the trustworthiness, and the concern of their well-being while making your presentation. If you notice a distraction while making your presentation, what do you need to do? If you respect your audience, you can pause for a moment to allow the distractions to subside. All right? That shows how caring you are while making your presentation. You will be selfish if there are distractions in the room and you continue endlessly making your presentation without considering your audience. You will lose them. Most of the message you are presenting will be lost. So your character is how the audience regard the sincerity, the trustworthiness, and the concern that you show to them while making your presentation. All right. So another way you can also connect with your audience or command their respect is the power of storytelling while making your presentation. Do you know what the power of storytelling does, or what storytelling does while making presentation? It connects, it builds trust, and it also helps to close deals. I repeat that again. When you use the power or you employ the power of storytelling, you can easily connect with your audience. You can build your audience. You can build trust with your audience. You can also close sales too. So sometimes, depending on the kind of audience you are relating with, sometimes the most compelling way to convey your presentation is to use illustrations. Sometimes you may need to use analogies in order to drive home your point, in order to explain, a seemingly difficult concept. that you want your audience to understand. So this is where the heart of storytelling comes into play. Now, do you know the beauty of it all is that everyone likes to listen to a good, well-told story. Is that not so? Everyone, they like to listen to a well-told story. So you want to make your story relatable. You want to make your story convincing. Don't tell a story that would make you disconnect with your audience. Now, remember I mentioned that storytelling helps you to easily connect with your audience. It helps to build trust in your audience, and it also helps to close deals. So, for this to be achieved, you need to tell a compelling, relatable story. Now, even if the specific context or the problem is far removed from your listener's experience, something in the thoughts, in their emotions, their fears, conversations will connect with your presentation. Did you get that? If for any reason you are making a presentation that involves that you use a story that make the context or the problem you are trying to emphasize, all right, is somehow far-fetched or far removed from your listener's experience, something in their thoughts, in their emotions, in their fears, in their conversations will be connected in the story. It will resonate with your audience because you are sharing a story they can easily relate with. So, how can you make your story relatable? This connection can be made easily through a simple plot structure. How can this be achieved? As a storyteller, while making your presentation, you want to start with a simple plot structure. You want to start from the beginning to the end. All right? Good. So how can this be achieved? Start by describing the original state of affairs. The next thing to do is you identify a key problem in your story. Identify a problem. That is one way you can make your audience to connect with your message. So identify a problem that you want to find a solution to. Right? All right? And show this where your audience will be easily connect with the story. You want to describe the struggle to overcome a challenge, such as competing priorities and risks, obstacles and ethical dilemmas. Then you want to share the resolution, whether it is a victory or whether it is the hope of a victory or a failure that your participant want to avoid. Ideally, you want to combine it with a positive lesson and with an explicit call to action. In copywriting, call to action is the message you want your audience to accept while making your presentation. You can also apply this to public speaking too, call to action. In a nutshell, what message are you trying to pass across to your message, to your audience in your storytelling? You have shared or you've described a state of affairs. You have shared a problem, whether it is a worst or it is a positive story. You want to share the call to action with your audience. That is one way you can easily connect with them. Now, how does storytelling affect the brain? Listeners will experience what we call brain activity. In science, there's what we call mirroring, and that is listeners experiencing similar brain activity as a speaker. Your audience, they are following side by side the narration of your story, the plot, the storyline. They are following dot by dot, as it were. They are mirroring the message you are trying to pass across to them. there's what we call dopamine. During emotional charged events, the brain releases what we call in science dopamine, making the event appear easier to remember with greater accuracy. It happens in the brain. Everything happens in the brain. That's one way you can capture the attention of your audience. Story, it activates parts in the brain that allows your listeners to turn the story to their own ideas and their experience. Have you ever watched a movie where after watching the movie or while watching the movie you started shedding tears, you started crying, as in your emotion was charged? Why? Because you connected with the storylines. Is that not so? Same is also expected of you as a public speaker. You're expected to connect with your audience. You should be able to activate part of the brain of your audience that will allow them to turn the story you are trying to narrate or to share with them to their own experience or to their own ideas. Right? Good. Now, why tell a story? As women, we are wired into DNA and we love hearing stories, good one that we can easily connect with. Story activates the emotional part of the brain and it also helps to aid memory. Your audience can easily remember your message. Sometimes your audience may not even remember all the details you have presented, but they will be able to remember the story or stories that you have shared with them because you were able to share stories they can easily relate with, stories they can easily trust, or they can easily relate to.
I think there is a problem with the internet, and Dr. Adeogun was explaining very well the concepts, and he was giving a wonderful explanation, and he was trying to connect the different dots in a way that you could understand how the public speaking could be more influential and have a wonderful confidence building. That's the wonderful part. I was just enjoying the way he was explaining the three types of the public speaking and what is the role of the manipulative speaker, and what is the influential speaker, the persuasive speaker, and what is the difference between all of them. That was so wonderful. He was explaining with the examples, and then he talked about the command, how you are going to have a command on the room where you are going to deliver your speech or you are presenting your work over there. And most importantly, the way he explained is so nice in a simple way. So he was explaining in that wonderful way. Welcome back, Dr. Adeogun. I was just telling the audience that the way you were explaining the different dots you were connecting was so awesome. I was highly engaged in your presentation, which was wonderful. And I love the way you talked about the different types of the public speaking, and then you talked about the how you are going to connect, how you are going to command, and then how you are going to finalize the deal. That's the wonderful part. And then very nicely you have connected with the credibility and now the storytelling, which was great. So please, stage is your. Continue, please.
All right, thank you very much. Actually experienced network glitches over,
Yes,
here, so I'm sorry for that.
no problem
So
at
I
all. Carry on, please.
okay, okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. So Before the network issue, I was trying to explain the power of storytelling. That storytelling as a public speaker help you to easily connect with your audience. It helps to build trust with your audience, and it also helps you to close deals, as it were. Then I also explained why public speaking is important because, in a nutshell, the focus of this presentation is the importance of public speaking in influencing your audience. There are three reasons why public speaking is important, and I want you to pay attention to these three reasons. One, it helps to win over your crowd. When you command the stage, when you connect with your audience using the power of storytelling or stories that your audience can easily relate with, they will easily connect with the message because you are winning or you are gaining their attention. Your audience will also be motivated. That is another important reason of public speaking. You will be able to motivate your audience to take actions. Like I mentioned earlier, you have a call to action at every stage of your presentation. Your audience will be able to make an informed decision on either to accept your message or to reject your message outrightly. So you will be able to motivate your audience with the power of your presentation. Then the last but not the least, which is the third reason why public presentation is important, is you will be able to inform your audience. Your audience will be well informed when you do your research very well. You support your presentation with facts, data, arguments, illustrations, analogies that they can easily relate with. The long and short of making your presentation is, at the end of the day, you want to have something in your pocket, right? You want to have something in your pocket. I hope you know what that means. At the end of the day, you want to monetize the power of your presentation. So the next slide, we focused on 5 ways you can monetize public speaking. Now we have looked at how you can easily influence your audience to accept your message and connect with them. You remember I mentioned that you need to be a persuasive public speaker. You need to influence your audience too as a public speaker. You remember I also mentioned that it's important that if you explain things in a way that makes sense to your audience, they will accept your message. It becomes very important too that you also put yourself in the shoes of your audience. Let them see into your perspective. If you make your audience respected and valued, they will be much more motivated to listen to your message too. I also mentioned that you need to command the stage. All right, you need to connect with your audience. You need to close the deal. Then you also need to ask yourself, how credible is your presentation? And what that simply means is that what is the perception of your audience as regards your message? How the audience perceive your intelligence, your expertise, your knowledge is how credible you are as a public speaker. And then you also recall that I mentioned the power of storytelling in your presentation and 3 ways you can easily win your audience to your side. So let's quickly look at 5 ways to monetize your professional speaking business or your professional speaking career. The first one is a keynote speaking. Simply put, this is how a lot of speakers make money across the world. And in fact, this is how I've been making money in my public speaking career. In the last 3 weeks, I've been featured in more than 3 international platforms, conferences, as a keynote speaker. And this has in a way helped me to smile to the bank. You know what I mean? Smiling to the bank. I've been able to, add more money to my bank accounts. So keynote speaking is one way you can monetize your public speaking business or public speaking career. And this is how a lot of public speakers have been able to make money across the world. They are invited to give a speech and then they get a check. Sometimes it is called a fee or what we know as an honorarium, all right, to appreciate their effort for coming on the platform to share their knowledge, to impact the audience or to contribute, their quota to human capital development. So for you to become a keynote speaker, you need to master your skill and build quality and strategic relationships with people in your inner circle, and that includes corporate organizations, all right, or brands too. And I also need to mention this too. While developing your career to become a keynote speaker or a respected keynote speaker, note that keynote speaking are usually reserved for speakers who have spoken before or who have established some sort of authority as great speakers. As you will be seeing in a moment, I will be sharing, some slides where I make some presentation at the international level. All right, so you can't just be an international public speaker, just in a day, overnight. No, it is something you achieve over the years, and that has to do with honing your skills. It has to do with bearing in mind the strategies that I shared with you earlier, right? So you can't just be a keynote speaker. You must have established yourself over the years as an authority in your niche. That is one way you can have the opportunity of being a keynote speaker. All right. So this is one of the opportunity I have recently with Hospa University, Madura in India. I was invited as one of the keynote speakers. You can see my picture. I was invited to make a presentation in one of the 2 days international virtual conference on the role of the value of education in digital marketing. This took place a few months ago, July 7th, where I make a presentation alongside my very good friend, Professor Nada Rakovic. She's an assistant professor with Faculty of Economics, Business and Tourism, Spirit, University of Split in Croatia. And I also make a presentation alongside my very good friend too, Professor Dr. Patrick Rogen. It's also a privilege for me to make a keynote presentation with some other prominent or eminent keynote speaker. All right, so it's something that you achieve over the years. It's not overnight, so you need to take your time to become a respected public speaker or a respected authority in your niche before you can have this opportunity of being a keynote speaker. Okay, this is also a platform. In fact, this was 2 weeks, last week, exactly last week, I made a presentation on mindset for transformation. It was a master class. I was invited to speak at Yes You Can International alongside some international keynote speaker. You must have heard about Professor Dr. Elizabeth Lucas Adefolalu. She's an international keynote speaker. I also make a presentation alongside Dr. Rafin Suarez. I make a presentation alongside Ruben Cassier and also with the academician, Senior Professor Chas, and some other prominent public speaker. And this was achieved not overnight. It's as a result of my consistency over the years. that gives me authority in my niche as a public speaker. So you need to take it easy with yourself. It's not something you achieve overnight. Is with consistent practice, making yourself more visible and making yourself known to people out there in the world. All right. Then this is also another platform where I speak on how to build a personal brand on social media. This took place on the 30th of July. That was a few weeks ago with Global Speakers Talk or Global Speakers Summits, where I have the opportunity to make a keynote presentation alongside Dr. Jonas Gatsi. You know Dr. Jonas Gatsi? All right. Dr. Jonas Gatsi is an international speaker that usually make a presentation alongside the international leadership guru, John C. Maxwell. All right. You can also see Pamela Stone also make a keynote presentation alongside Pamela Stone, Maureen Lupton, Josephine Galaria. She was the host, Renee Janik, and Mayran Mohammed. These are few international keynote speakers that I presented alongside which. So what I'm saying in essence is one way you can monetize your speaking career or skill is by keynote speaking. All right, let me also show you. Okay, this is also another opportunity where I also make a presentation as a keynote speaker at International Internship University, all about artificial intelligence. That was last week, where I also make a presentation speaking on deep learning. Interestingly, I will also be speaking on public speaking, a secret to building authority and visibility tomorrow at Diction and Public Speaking Summits. You know, the summits will be starting by 4 p.m. today, but I will be making my presentation, as you can see on the screen, tomorrow, speaking on a secret to building authority and visibility. So this is what keynote presentation will afford you. It will afford you the opportunity to make presentation at international platform. All right, you can also see this. This happens recently too at the International Conference on United Nations on the SDGs, where I spoke on SDG heads. All right, can you also see by the site? I was also invited to speak at a platform where I spoke on the topic managing mental health concerns as entrepreneur on the 2nd of July. All right. Then next week, Friday too, I will also be at an international conference on humanity and human rights. All right. I will be speaking alongside international speakers, as you can see, lined up on the flyer. All right. So that is it about keynote speaking. One way you can monetize your public speaking career. Another way you can monetize your public speaking business or career is hosting training. You can hold workshops, you can hold conferences, you can hold seminar, you know. So a lot of people I know are struggling with public speaking, or they have the fear of public speaking. In fact, 75% of people in the world have the fear of public speaking. As a public speaker, you can create and develop seminars and workshops, master classes in any field you operate in. That is hosting training for people to learn, to garner experiences, knowledge from you. You can host a workshop where people that aspire to be professional public speakers like you can be trained to become public speaker. You can become a trainer that has an academy where you share detailed information about exercises with your students. But then I want you to bear this in mind, that hosting training could be in any form. It could be in person, that is in front of an audience, either live online or recorded online. So either way, you are making a presentation to a live audience that will pay you for the knowledge you are sharing with them. So you are hosting a training with them. Then the third way you can monetize your public speaking skill is to package your knowledge as a product. Did you get that? Packaging your knowledge as a product. So you want to package your knowledge, you can profit from your passion, and this is what we call information product. You can package your knowledge or your expertise in form of an ebook, right? You can do a physical book just like this. I recently launched a book last year, precisely September 11th, and the title of the book is Tap Into Your Resourcefulness. The book contains ideas, information, strategies on how you can transit from paid employment to entrepreneurship. I have so many of my books here out there. One of my books is on Amazon, Fundamentals of Freelance Writing. If you want to hone your skill and you want to gain an in-depth knowledge on how you can become an effective content curator of freelance writer, you can go to Amazon, just type Fundamentals of Freelance Writing by Adeogun Joseph Kayode. There you have my book there downloaded as a soft copy. You can also have it as a paperback too. This is another way I make money from my public speaking experience. I just demonstrated that to you now. I'm selling my product to you. Is that not so? I'm selling my product to you that I've packaged as information products. So you can package your knowledge as a public speaker, either as an ebook, as a physical book, as shown to you a few seconds ago, or you can have online courses. You can have home study in DVD. You can package them on CDs. Then you sell it to your audience. Information product is a greater way to monetize the knowledge, I tell you. In fact, it is the easiest way you can monetize your knowledge and make what we call passive income in the long run. It's not something that is short-lived. You make money over time, over time, over time, over time from packaging your knowledge as a product. And one thing about this kind of income stream, that is a passive income, is that once you create it, you will never have to do anything again than to keep marketing and making money from it. And that is what I do. From time to time, I do Facebook ads to drive traffic to Amazon, where people can download my book as soft copy or where they can order for it as paperback. So that is one interesting thing about packaging your knowledge, having it in online stores such as Amazon, Smartwatch, Okada Book, Kobo, and some online platforms where people can easily access your information products. Now, let me also share this bonus with you. It's actually a bonus because you remember I mentioned that I'm going to share, just 3 ways you can monetize your knowledge. Remember the 3 ways I just shared with you? First, you can be a keynote speaker. You can be invited as a keynote speaker. Secondly, you remember that I also mentioned that you can host training. You can create a seminar that is based on your speaking skill. You can host a workshop where people that aspire to be professional speakers like you can be trained to become public speaker. Or you can even have an academy where you share detailed information about your niche or area of knowledge that you want people to specialize in, or you want them to gain knowledge in. And then you remember that I also mentioned that you package your knowledge as a product. So let me give you this as a bonus. Start a podcast or a YouTube channel. That is another way you can monetize your knowledge. And it's another area that I will be going into in the next 6 months. Watch out for my YouTube channel where I'll be sharing nuggets on my area of specialty, on freelance writing, on purpose-driven life, on leadership, on public speaking. In the next 6 months, I'm saying this to a live audience so that you can hold me accountable. So where I'm found wanting or where I am not able to fulfill my public promise or pronunciation, you can hold me accountable. So you are my accountability partner, right? Good. So another way you can make money from public speaking is starting a podcast or YouTube channel, as I mentioned. You will agree with me that the rise of online video and stream platform makes it easy to get information in front of your target audience on a platter of growth. You'll be able to create content that resonates with your audience. You'll be able to choose a platform that makes the most sense to your audience too. And this is where you need to be very, very careful too. Whether you are using a podcast or a YouTube channel, whichever platform you want to use, you want to determine your audience place of abode, as it were, where your audience can be easily found. There are individuals, you can easily find them on YouTube. So why not have a YouTube channel where you can regularly communicate the knowledge you want your audience to have an in-depth knowledge on? All right, we have different applications supporting podcast, content. You can check that on the Play Store, where you can download different applications that you can use. So it is important that you carefully choose a platform that make the most sense to your audience. YouTube, for instance, is a great place to show off your visual presentation skills. All right, so you can use YouTube too to broadcast your information, or you share your knowledge, or you could even engage with listeners directly on a podcast for an intimate experience. You can experiment. I want to advise that you experiment with different medium or platforms until you find one that gives you your personality and the style that you actually represent, or that your brand actually represents, and most importantly, get in front of the right audience. So having mentioned that as a bonus to my presentation, that you need to start a podcast or YouTube channel to connect with your audience. So conclusively, as I will be rounding off my presentation, speaking engagement provides you opportunities to give your brand a face to whom the audience can contact for either services, for products, for advice, or for business opportunities. And when people see you speak face to face and experience the value and emotions that come along, you know what will happen? Or you know what that will achieve? They feel motivated to believe in your brand, to believe in you as a person. So instead of overlooking the importance of public speaking in boosting your brand image, I want to advise you to acknowledge its power and grab more and more speaking gig to speak to an audience that can be imparted. And in the long run, you get paid for your effort, for the knowledge, for the experience, for the exposure, for the high-opening message that you will be sharing with your audience. So I want to appreciate once again my very dear friend, my very good friend, for the opportunity he has given to me, my host, Dr. Haider Shah, the Associate Professor at Bra Business University. I also want to appreciate the management of Bavaria University and also Center for Academic Learning, Writing, and Support Services uh, for the opportunity given to me to be on this live audience, international audience for that matter. I don't take this for granted. And more importantly, my learned colleagues, the faculty members of Bavaria University, Pakistan. I want to appreciate you for this opportunity. Then the international audience too, I want to appreciate you too for giving me your time to speak on the topic, speaking, public speaking skill, speak with power and influence. I'm very sure you must have gained one or two experiences as regards speaking with power and influence. If you will permit me to quickly do a brief summary of my presentation, you remember I started with how to overcome the fear of public speaking that is medically known as glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. You know, 3 out of 4 people or 75 individuals suffer from public speaking. So you will notice that I've been able to convince you on how you can speak persuasively and how you can influence your audience to accept the message you are presenting to them. You also recall that I explained how you can command the room. Did you remember? Commanding the room in this context simply means that gaining the attention of your audience. And that is the most important thing once you mount the stage. It becomes very important. You also need to connect with your audience. You know, everyone communicates, just like John C. Maxwell says, but it is only few that connect. So you must look for relevance, something that you can easily connect with your audience for you to build trust with your audience or for you to close deals as it were with your audience. So your audience need to recognize that you are connected with them mentally and emotionally on the topic of your presentation. You also remember that I mentioned the importance or the power of storytelling as a way to captivate the attention of your audience. So on this note, I want to draw the curtain of my presentation and I want to say thank you once again to everyone for giving me your time. Should you want to connect with me, as you can see on the screen, you can connect with me on my Facebook page with the name Adeogun Kayode. On my Instagram, you can use the same name, Adeogun Kayode. You can also use the same name on my LinkedIn. You can also connect with me on my email, oluwakayode@adeogun@gmail.com. Or you can also chat me on my WhatsApp and numbers with the following phone numbers: 08038520381. I take that again: 08038520381 or 09094790890. Once again, I appreciate you giving me your undivided attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeogun. That was so great to listen to you because the way you are explaining the things was so nice. And I must congratulate you. You did a fantastic job while explaining everything in such a wonderful way. Some
Thank
of
you.
your phrases, I love that, like you just mentioned, that don't get your audience bored and you must make it very simple, not technical, otherwise they will not be interested. I love that sentence, that
Sure.
please come up
Sure.
with the simple sentences, come up with the simplest way. That's the wonderful part, because sometimes there is a misconception that we need to have a complex words or the phrases to impress the audience, but through this way we may not connect them properly. As you have emphasized very rightly that you have to connect with your audience, and for that you must have a simple language or the simple terminology so that they could understand very well. I love that of your phrase. And another phrase I love, because of that you have achieved a lot, and that is the word of the consistency and persistence that you carried on. And the result of your consistency was that you achieved such a wonderful, I would say, the milestones of writing the books, presenting on different platforms, contributing to different organizations. That is because you did not give up. You were consistently doing the improvement, and you were doing the wonderful job. And I must congratulate, what you are doing is a fantastic, and hats off to you. That's the wonderful part. And
Thank you very much.
above everything, I love the way you explain how can our audience, they monetize their knowledge. And very nicely you have mentioned the one thing which I love, that packaging your knowledge. That was a wonderful idea, that packaging your knowledge as product. And yes, of course, you are doing it very well, you are earning very well, and you are marketing yourself very well. That's the wonderful part, because you have the knowledge and now you are marketing about it, and you are earning and you are contributing at the same time, because people, they are getting the in-depth knowledge, they are getting the wonderful tips and recommendation. How can they build up their confidence? How can they overcome the fear of public speaking, which is the problem with the most kind of students, the researchers, the professionals. They are afraid of presenting any work in front of the huge crowd, I would say. That's the difficult part. But since experts like you, they are there to guide them, they are there to give them recommendation that how can they overcome their fearness, and how can they improve them. That's the wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Adeogun,
I
for
appreciate
such a
it.
wonderful presentation. Yeah. If
Mm,
you allow me, should we ask with the question, please? Okay. So the first question they want to ask, since you are the expert, they want to ask that please, Prof, guide us that how can we control the emotional intelligence while having the fear of public speaking. As you discussed in the influential speaker, that he must have the emotional intelligence. But please give us few tips that how can we have a control on emotional intelligence during public speaking. Yes, please.
All right, good. So, as a persuasive public speaker, you will also remember that I mentioned that you need to speak persuasively. And one way you can achieve that is through emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence in this context is the ability for you to read your audience. You should be able to know when your audience are happy. You should be able to determine when your audience are not happy. So that will guide the way you make your presentation. Let me give you an experience to buttress my answer to this question. When I was in 100 level at the University of Adoekiti in Nigeria, one of my lecturers, when he was taking us a course, Psychology 102, he spoke on the topic emotions. You know what he did to capture our attention as students? He entered the hall, he mounted the podium or the stage, then he started crying. He was crying profusely. He was crying. He was crying. The audience were confused that what could have happened, that the lecturer is crying. We expect the lecturer to make a presentation, but now he mounted the podium, he was crying, he was shedding tears profusely. Few of the students approached him because everybody cannot approach the lecturer at the same time, right? Good. It will be crowded, right? So few persons approached him. The governor of my department approached him, and they tried to calm him down. That, oh, prof, sorry, we noticed that you are crying. What is the problem, lecturer, our lecturer? Then he gave them a sign. He told them to calm down. and he now cleaned his face. He asked them to go to their seats. And eventually, he smiled and said, the topic for today is emotional intelligence. You see what the lecturer has achieved with his emotion. He was able to capture the attention of his audience, his students, by demonstrating the topic he wants to teach them. So, persuading your audience with emotional intelligence simply means that you need to understand your audience. You study your audience. You understand their demographic, their age, their career. That will give you an insight on how to make your presentation convincingly, on how to command their attention. Now, if you remember in my presentation, I emphasize the importance of credibility. Your character is important. And what does your character does? You will recognize the emotion of your audience if you observe that while making your presentation, because you were able to connect with your audience, one of your audience or one of the participants of your audience is crying, for example, or shedding tears. There's nothing wrong if you move very close to your audience and you tap him or her, and if you can share a few tears too, fine. You are connecting with your audience. So that's what it means to apply emotional intelligence as a persuasive or influential public speaker. You should be able to carry your audience along. You should be able to charge them with your presentation. You should be able to connect with them persuasively while presenting to them. I don't know if that has answered your question, please.
That's wonderful answer, and I love the way you explain with the example, which was very much the lessonful, and you have given it and you have connected in a wonderful way. That's the beauty of the expert, that they always connect it with the real world example, and then they show you what is it and how it works. So very nicely you have given wonderful this tips and messages to the world. Now we have another very interesting question, which is very much, I would say, some kind of myth in the mind of the people, that how can we judge the oral proficiency. They want to ask that, dear Dr. Adeogun, please guide us about the oral proficiency. Are there any guidelines and criteria to assess and test my students' oral proficiency, since it is difficult to measure oral proficiency? So, what is your recommendation? Yes, please.
All right. I want to advise that I will be having a presentation tomorrow where the focus will be on how to build visibility on public speaking. And we also have some other facilitators that will be speaking on diction. You know what I mean by diction? The ability to make proper pronunciation, the pitch of your presentation, the highs and lows of your presentation becomes very important. So you need an elocutionist, an expert that can help you hone your diction while making your presentation. I don't know if I got the question rightly, but I'm giving you a tip that can help you to be an influential or a powerful public speaker. For you to improve in your public speaking, you can employ the service of a professional coach, a professional elocutionist, a professional diction coach that can help you in pronunciation of your words while making your presentation. Well, it is not something that can be achieved overnight. It can be achieved with consistency, with constant practice. As the saying goes, practice does what? Makes perfection. You need to keep improving yourself. You need to keep perfecting your skill, your art of public speaking. Sometimes your students, your audience, they will struggle with understanding your intonation, especially if you are speaking to an English speaking audience. You know, you need to work on your pronunciation. All right. So, and that is where audience analysis also becomes very important. When you do an audience analysis, you know the categories of audience you'll be dealing with. You know the languages they are familiar with. That will guide your presentation. Anything short of that, you will lose your audience. You will lose your students while making your presentation because you will be speaking to them and it will be coming out from the other ears because the message is not well passed. They don't understand what you are saying. So I want to suggest why you can go online, you do more research on how to develop your public speaking skill, your pronunciation in this context, you know, your diction. I also advise that you can also employ the service of a diction coach to help you to earn your skill. There's a saying that the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. So you need a mentor, you need a coach to guide you. A mentor is like a map that guides one who goes on a journey. If you are on a journey to a destination, to an unknown destination, with Google Map, you will be able to do what? To find your way to your destination. So that is a brief description of what having a mentor can do to your career as a public speaker. Have a coach, a diction coach, or a locutionist. You can also go on YouTube and download some content that can help you to improve your diction or your presentation skills.
Yes, that's wonderful. Wonderful answer once again, dear Dr. Adeogun. The way you are answering and the way you are connecting the different dots, and then you come up with your own examples. That's the wonderful part. And I was just thinking that how great teacher you would be when you will be lecturing on certain topics, and the way you will be connecting. The class would be enjoying your knowledge a lot because you have a wonderful exposure.
Thank you.
Really,
I appreciate, bro. I
yeah, thank
appreciate.
you very much.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
yeah, so since you have answered wonderful to these questions, and most of the question you have already covered in your presentation, because your presentation slides were so powerful, the content was so great that everything it had, and I would say that it was so great in a way that it explained everything, and with the powerful explanation you have covered up so many things which were even not mentioned in the slides, but you were explaining it because these were the different concepts which needs to be cleared before to understand the slides even. So really a great speaker you are, the great command you have. Really
Thank
I
you.
appreciate and I congratulate you on this wonderful presentation. Dear Prof, at the end of the session, we ask each our guest about their message to the world. So, what is your message to the world as a teacher, researcher, trainer, learner, professional, and educator? Yes, please.
All right. Let me start by appreciating the youths. As you may be probably aware, today is International Youth Day. Are you aware, Prof?
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof.
Okay, today is International Youth Day. So I want to direct my advice to the youths and also to a larger audience that when you are consistent in everything you do, the sky is your starting point. So I want to enjoin you to be consistent in what you do, whether you are a public speaker, whether you are a lecturer, whether you are entrepreneur, whether you are an accountant, you are an engineer, whatever profession you are involved in, the importance of consistency cannot be overemphasized. With my consistency, I've been able to have the opportunity of meeting who is who in the society, not just in the society, in the world. I've been able to dine with multinational organizations, representatives, because of my consistency. You know, Prof, you agree with me. If you check some of my posts on Facebook, you see my activities, you see what I do on Facebook. That is an example of consistency. There are individuals who have seen what I do online and they chatted me via my inbox that they want to connect with me. They want to know more about what I do as an individual. And I was able to connect with these individuals, and it has opened up opportunities for me. So, the importance of consistency in everything you do cannot be overemphasized. So, be consistent in carrying out your responsibility, in carrying out your task. And I tell you, when you do this, the sky, as a saying, will be your starting point. And then I also want to enjoin you too that never be tired of acquiring knowledge. There is a saying that the day you stop learning is the day you do what? You start dying. So continuous learning, continuous professional improvement becomes very important. Remember, I started by directing my advice to our youths. There are so many challenges, there are so many things that will frustrate you, to want to make you to lose focus. But when you are consistent, when you are hungry for knowledge, what we rather known as a lifelong learning, I tell you, the sky will be your starting point. Um, I don't know if I've been able to capture one or two things, and if you want me to continue, Prof, I can do that. But I know time will fail us if I continue to share everything that I need to tell the audience uh, today.
Thank you very much. Such a great message you have given to the world, Prof. And I really appreciate this wonderful. I would say it's not the one word; it's the one word which we can conduct 3 hours workshop on the word consistency, because it contains so many things. It is a wonderful philosophy, and I would say very nicely you have given your own example of your consistency, how it is actually helped you while grooming and having the worldly recognition. This is just because of the consistency what you are doing. And I love your different posts regarding the different updates that on which platform you are going to share your knowledge, and the
Okay.
people they love to connect with you. That's the wonderful part. And
Thank
I would
you.
say thank you to the technology. That technology made it very easy
Thank you,
for us
Prof.
that we can connect. So I really appreciate the way you are contributing to the world. You are guiding the world in a positive way, and we wish you best of luck. Please carry on, and our prayers are always with you. What you are doing is a fantastic job. Thank you once again, dear Prof. So
Thank you. I
uh,
appreciate it, Prof.
yeah, thank you. At the end, I would say to my audience, whoever is watching around the world and who will be watching in future this recorded session, that please do follow our distinguished guest speaker through his work, and you can email him and you can connect with him through social media for the further guidance, because he's always ready to share his knowledge. He's very generous and always ready to help the people. Moreover, powerful content and wonderful explanation the great speaker has done, and I hope it will help you a lot while improving the public speaking. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you once again, Dr. Adeogun Joseph Kayode, and I would like to thank our audience who joined us from around the globe. Thank you all for your support and liking our session. Stay tuned as many sessions are on the way. Please do not miss any session. Until next session, take care.